It's my great pleasure to have Dennis Wood, the inventor of the Morpheus Stabilizer. Um, Welcome. It's great talking to you, Dennis.
Oh, thank you. It's great to. I'm glad you reached out. It's kind of funny because we were talking earlier about what to call this thing, and at one point I wanted to call it the Cinevatalizer, but we thought it would be a little hard on the marketing side.
Yeah, right.
So,
Innovator. Right. So on that note, this is not your first product, right? I mean, you actually have a company and you built it some years ago. Talk a little bit about that very briefly.
yeah, and actually we reference it in our Kickstarter campaign. I was working as a systems analyst for the federal government doing computer stuff, and I had a well, I didn't. My wife and I had a daughter, and I didn't own a video camera before then. But what happened is I came up with I didn't like the video that I was getting from the video camera. I didn't like the look of it, so I started, going online and looking at forums like DVX User, and there was one called Pana3 CCD User, and essentially, I just came up with a device, and my intention was just to make one for myself. So I went to DVX User and said, "Hey guys, I'm going to make 10 of these. So if you want one, send some money to my PayPal account. I'm only doing 10." And I think within 2 hours, 12 people had sort of signed up.
So let's jump to Morpheus now. So is Morpheus your first Kickstarter product? Or you have done it before? What was the inspiration for you to go the Kickstarter route?
Well, the Kickstarter route, this product has been a big challenge for us. Typically, the equipment that we make, is anywhere between $400 and $2,000. It's all professional filmmaking gear. It tends to be fairly niche, and we have good sort of feelings for the gear when we make it as to whether or not it's gonna fly or not in the industry. This product has been sort of a passion project for me personally, very much like the Brevis was back in the day. And if you think about the video that we shot, the run, it's kind of the same thing. It's the ability to do these really high production value type shots with something that's inexpensive. And at the time, the Brevis, even at $900 or $1,000, which it was in that range, was still a lot cheaper than using film. So this is the same concept. It's high production value, lower cost, but it's a consumer type product. So that's not an area that we're comfortable with. So for us, this is the first Kickstarter project, and we had a few people. We even asked ourselves, like, what are people going to think if we go on Kickstarter? And really, the question is that there's two things really. We don't really do a lot in plastic. And when you do something in plastic, you're doing injection molding. Injection molding costs a ton of money.
To get the mold, right? To get the initial mold, the initial investment, the capital costs, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's why you see Kickstarter. And quite frankly, I mean, there's two reasons. Well, there's probably three reasons. We were prepared if the Kickstarter campaign just failed or no one had interest. We were prepared to turn our backs on 4 years of basically messing around and just walk away from it, because we have to be careful. And when you're making, this is the biggest probably investment ahead of the game for any product. When you make something out of CNC metal, it's basically we prototype it, and then we start machining it, and you don't have to spend $75,000 on molds to do something like that. So Kickstarter, it kind of gave us an opportunity to assess how other people felt about the product, because people around you, when you're doing something like this, and we did do a focus group, which very much changed the direction for the product. We actually did a formal, the Confederation College locally has a lab. So we did a focus group and we showed them one of the products, and they kind of didn't like it. So we kind of changed gears again. And every time you do something like that, you do want to have a little bit of confidence. I mean, business is a risk every day, but you try to mitigate that risk. Right. And Kickstarter is in a very interesting way. It just became available to Canadians, which was kind of fortuitous.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, GoPros, the Hero 3 is probably the first GoPro camera, as an example, where I think the HD footage is actually pretty good.
Right. By the way, you said that the focus group changed some key things. Can you name one or two? What was the key things from that to what we see here?
Yeah, well, a couple things, and we may actually end up going ahead with the failed product at some point, and it's kind of a similar concept. I can show you if you promise not to show anyone, haha. But it's sitting right here. So this unit is a and the focus group saw it. But
by the way, all this it's going to go out, right? So you know that you're kidding, right?
So this is a unit. I mean, we've got about 4 patents filed now, so I don't mind showing this stuff at all.
Okay.
But this is a unit that actually folds up and would potentially go in your pocket, and it still uses the same gimbal, the same magnetic array steering system, and it's got some really cool features related to iPhones. And it actually flies without a handle. Your finger's the handle. So no one's really seen this publicly, so you're getting kind of a sneak peek. And you notice that the iPhone actually, in this case an iPhone 4, actually fits in here.
Is the thing on your finger kind of the control? That's what you're talking about? It kind of hook onto the back?
It's the gimbal bit.
Oh, wow.
Snaps in, and this is our little zero friction. You can see it's going to wobble all over the place. But this would be, you know, a pocketable unit that has no handle. Your finger is the handle. Maybe the world's first point-and-shoot camera. So,
really point and shoot. Like you point at and then you shoot. Is it very difficult to use? Like I actually have used some Steadicam before in NAB. I was at NAB in 2010, and I'm not an expert in Steadicam. And I thought, oh, okay, well, it's easy. No. Like any of those are quite actually. It takes quite a skill. I mean, it's definitely not something you learn like boom. How about your system? How easy is it?
Well, there's a couple things that we've done that I think make it easy, or easier. There's still some balance required, but the way that we're doing that is very simple. At least I think it is. And in terms of the different devices, there are different weights required, but the way that it's really quite cool. So first of all, there's this whole repeatability issue. So the issue of, you know, I take my phone out of the device, I want to fold up the device and put it away.
Right.
Well, okay, so now I just changed a bunch of stuff, right?
Right, yeah, and then is it going to balance again?
Is it going to balance okay? Yeah. Well, I mean, so I unfold it. There's actually, there's so much that's gone into the product, it's almost crazy. But when I unfold it, everything kind of comes to a hard stop, if you like. And you know, if this all works correctly, the one thing is the iPhone is asymmetrical. It's not balanced at the midpoint because there's a battery and so on in there.
Right.
But you notice that the gimbal is removable. So if I'm using it in any of the dolly modes, I can quickly remove it. And at this point, you can see I put it back on there and it's balanced. So, and one of the other features that we've made is we've made it very simple. So the gimbal itself actually doesn't move. And all the trimming is done with some fairly intuitive controls. So if, for example, I wanted to tilt forward, I have a number of things that I could do. The easiest thing is just to take these little adjusters and withdraw them. So if, for example,
what do you mean by withdraw them? Like take them out or what?
They're threaded in.
Oh, okay. So you actually the distance, how tight or how loose. That's pretty slick.
So if I change what I'm doing right now by unscrewing these caps.
Right. So they go further away from the body, so it tilts them a little.
Exactly. And because there are 2 legs, I actually have 2 points of balance. I can also, if I'm in a pinch, I can do things like just drop the legs to lower my center of mass. So if I just wanted to throw a camera and maybe I had a case on here and I didn't want to rebalance it, I could actually very quickly do that by just lowering the leg position. But in their kind of locked position right now, they're
locked position meaning that the extent that the most like right. Okay.
But conversely, if one of the inspirations for this product, well, what if I'm, and this actually is a true story. I'm out at a place called We Met Canyon, which is a great place that's close to Thunder Bay. I'm with my 2 daughters and my wife. I got my iPhone, and I just wanted to be in a couple pictures. But try and find a place where you can stick an iPhone down, and
and have the camera angle right and everything without scratching the whole thing or breaking it, dropping it.
So what we did here is, if I create a bit of an obstacle, well, I'll just throw that down. I think you can see that.
Yeah.
How about we pick something that's not black?
Yeah, right. That helps. But
well, I'm just going to put a wireless mouse here.
Yeah, all right. That's good.
Just pretend that that's a rock. So at this point, if I put my camera in here, I have issues. But what I can do is I can adjust the leg position, for example, lay it down. This is quite a dramatic balance issue. I think if I try this iPhone charger, for example, you can see I can actually rotate all these legs down, and I can sort of overcome this obstacle, if you like, because now it's leveled, right? And you know, and because every leg's adjustable, and because these are adjustable, it's whether you do a time lapse, which I think is a lot of people will do, especially when they see some of the cool stuff that we've been doing. We haven't talked about time-lapse at all in the Kickstarter campaign, but behind me right here is a unit that can do both circular and linear time-lapses over a period of about 2.5 hours that we're playing with, and it's going to be very inexpensive.
What makes that time-lapse thing? What gadget? Like, do you need to add a motor, or what does what
we're playing around here is a very simple. We haven't well, we actually showed a picture of this on our website, but nobody knows what it is. But
by you whining it, I think I got an idea. Wow.
Yeah, it's basically the world's simplest time lapse, I think, and it's quite predictable in its rate. So what we're doing is we're getting about 18 inches per hour out of this unit right now, and it'll go for about 2.5 hours. So about the time that it takes to kill an iPhone battery shooting one frame every 4 seconds. And because now I've got the wheels kit on this particular unit, and the wheels themselves can be articulated and steered just by turning
the angle.
Yeah. So essentially, right now, if I just I'm going to take the I'll take this off of here. You really can't see this really great, but there's our little, call it our time lapse unit that's designed to run on both rails and table, depending on which profile.
So Dennis, I feel obligated, even as the interviewer, I should warn you that whatever you show, it's going to be seen by the world.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine, because we're going to be showing it. We're going to be showing people the time lapses that we're shooting. So you're getting a bit of a sneak peek here. That's part of our.
That's really cool. So that's just a simple spring-wide mechanism inside, right? I mean, and it should be hopefully inexpensive. How much are we talking about?
Well, it's hard. These things are always really difficult. But the goal is, you know, I figure if we can do something that has a ton of mount options that's under $100, then we're in a good place.
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, once we get the basic set, and then the other stuff, just make it cheap. I mean, I'm a potential customer, so I'm on everyone's side. Make it affordable. Then we can add on. We can keep buying stuff that works with the system.
Well, you know, and when we look at this and we think about the options for support, I mean, the iPhone's easy because you can download an app and just do a time lapse. And because we have the wheel setup the way that we do, there's a lot of creative options here. In this case, I've really quickly, it took that long to configure this into a circular dolly type movement. So you can see it's following an arc on my table.
Yeah, the circular thing, I kind of see it from your video. So you can actually change the angle, and then it changes the radius. And
that's right.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's really, again, it's the wheels themselves. I mean, these are printed wheels from the prototyper, but these types of wheels have to be machined. They have to be CNC milled to be accurate. So they have an ABEC type bearing in there. So they're very smooth and very quiet. And because I can configure the time-lapse unit just about anywhere, if I configure the time-lapse unit like this, for example, and we're going to show you in a day or two a circular time-lapse that's achieved just like this. So we can do long linear ones on rails, or we can just put it on any flat surface. It could be a piece of plastic or piece of MDF or anything that's smooth. And not just that, but I mean, if you're a family, or you're I mean, even if you're a wedding videographer or a professional, you could very well at an event, if you sort of have this mindset, the way we think anyway, set up a time lapse, put a little sign, say please don't touch. Maybe it's a couple rings and the sun's coming through a window.
Oh man.
So it's you know, and then, so you're off shooting the wedding, but your time lapse is going on, and then the bride and groom get this awesome, you know, cool thing that they didn't even know probably was happening. So whether it's just, you know,
quick follow-up question on that. Obviously, I mean, having a smooth surface would be great, but even if it is slightly rough and whatnot, the time lapse, shouldn't that sort of fix it, because you're going really slowly? So even if they're
no, because what you'll get this in the frames. Now you could go and fix it, but one of the things we've learned, because we're a professional camera company, is you know, the time lapse that you'll see from this, it looks, if you know, I did want to, and I'm playing around all the time this weekend, you know, on my kitchen table, and we were away, the family was out, so you didn't see any movement. So if you look at the time lapse, and it was at night, so there was just a light over, it looks like just a nice dolly shot. You can't even tell it's a time lapse, and that's a good time. That's a good time lapse when it's stable like that. So,
okay.
And that's the kind of results we're getting right now with this.
So that's where this perfect flatness or smoothness on the wheels movement and whatnot that will give you. Otherwise, even if there's slight roughness and whatnot, you're saying it's going to show when when you put it together.
Yeah, any kind of movement during a time lapse is not a good thing, because if the camera moves, then and you don't care. Like if you're just doing a fun time lapse and it moves, who cares? But if you're trying to do something during an event and you're using this as a serious creative tool, then yeah, we kind of want it to be good enough to be used professionally if somebody was going to use it. And again, if somebody broke it or stole it. You're not losing a $6,000 Sony camera. You might lose maybe a GoPro, or, I mean, there's lots of these cameras. Like this Sony RX100 shoots amazing video. And, we're going to be shooting with the Blackmagic pocket camera in a couple days, which is,
the Blackmagic, yeah. I saw
that. So, so in terms of this whole device, it's become much more than just a stabilizer and a stand. It's become, I'm going to call it, great production value for a couple $100 is probably a good way. Or Cinevitalizer. You see why I call it that?
Cinevitalizer, right. Yeah. So
that's what we do.
So at this point, I should bring this up because at some point I'm going to bring this up. So this is not just a Steadicam system, right? And by me mentioning Steadicam, I also want to bring up the sort of the back in my mind comparison, like. Garrett Brown, the inventor of Steadicam system, which your granted patent actually referenced his patent.
Yes.
So do you feel a little bit, let me, there's so many questions in there, but let me start with, do you feel a little bit like him years and years ago, but in a very different scale or different things that you are inventing, you're doing?
You know what? I don't feel like anyone out there. I mean, and my approach to these things has always been, here's a problem, how do I solve it? And that's what I thrive on. That's why I'm still doing this. And one of the things that, I've noted, and there's even some Kickstarter campaign projects that are pretty much just kind of, people have just copied the concept. And
they copy the concept? What concept? Like
of Steadicam. Like say the Merlin or
okay.
And I didn't want. We aren't those people. That's not what we do here. So this, in terms of its dual support and the dual mass, it just in the magnetic steering and the gimbal system, which is just crazy simple, but really, really works well. These are all things that they're not copies of anything. They're actually original.
So the
ideas.
Magnetic steering itself is brand new. Like you guys invented it, and it's part of your patent.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. So. And the way that works is really simple. It's it uses a magnetic field, and we played around with how to generate one. But you'll see that this is essentially a key part of it associated with a handle. And this particular component can be slid back and forth.
Which can be slid back and forth. By the way, can you lift a little bit higher? I think that in the recording is fine, but my icon is kind of blocking it. Okay, go ahead.
I'll do it with a black shirt so you can kind of see. So this component here can be slid back and forth.
Oh, so like, can you move it a little up? Like, can you go high up?
It's pretty tight.
It's pretty tight. Oh, so where that vertical thing can be moved back and forth. Got it.
That's right.
And that is a super magnet or something like that? Or?
Yeah, it's essentially a rare earth magnet. And by playing around with polarities and field positioning, and we work with some very interesting people, including, a prof at one of the Canadian universities that specialize in these types of things. So, but when it's positioned on the device now, I can choose if I want to. I can actually remove we'll call it the one of the components there. We'll call it the steering magnet, if you like.
Oh, okay. So the vertical one is right there in the back. All right.
That's right.
And
there's an array. There's an array position around the gimbal that actually steers this thing. So when you asked if it's hard to use, it takes a little bit of practice. But what I find is that if I can tell people two things, which is, when you're using it, try and keep this piece, this horizontal bridge, if you like, horizontal, and and also be smooth. So when you go around a corner with this, if you happen to be steering it like this, what you're going to do is give it a bit of a kick and then correct. You're going to basically stop. So if you're going around a corner typically with a Steadicam, and you could with this, you can actually get your fingers in here, and there's a ridge that we put here for fingertip control. So if you did want to use it with a really rapid move
to balance the unit up top.
Yeah, so in terms of your fingers, they're really just there to steer it, like any like a Merlin or one of the other products out there. What's different with this is you notice this other hand is free, and that means this hand can go up and down. It can do whatever. We can see if this isn't going to look great on Skype, but you see as I move it, camera basically. Let's try this again without the range and limitation. But you see if I move this up and down, the camera's pretty much going to stay right where I put it. It's going to be very, very stable. And the field will actually line it up to the handle. So if I'm going around a corner, I'll do this very slowly. The camera's really following the handle.
Oh, so it's still perpendicular to the handle itself. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, more or less. And if I choose to disengage the field, so now I've got I have no basically magnetic field at all.
Right. By the way, so it's just the unit right now is just resting on the handle. There's no magnet up top.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So if I turn, you see I'm turning my hand, and it's not doing anything.
Right.
So if I went around a corner, it would keep going straight. Now I could get my fingers in here and do this, but the problem is like this thing weighs the stabilizer itself without the handle is only about 150, 160 grams. So it doesn't weigh much more than the phone. So if I touch it, I'm gonna see it.
Yeah.
But add some way to steer it without actually touching it that has some, quote, elasticity. And now you can it really gives you the sensation of flying. There's never any interruptions. So in the piece we shot, The Run, which was shot specifically with this right here, at no point did I touch the camera ever to steer it. So we used a boom pole for some of the jib shots. So we basically had we have a thread on the back of this handle. Right.
Oh, okay. Yes, and that's a standard thread, right?
It's a 1/4-20 thread.
Yeah. The camera.
In production, we'll probably add a 3/8 thread because 3/8 is common on the end of some of the like a boom mic pole or anything. So by putting a boom here, I can be 10 feet that direction, and the gimbal is going to steer in relation to the handle. And that's exactly how we did those shots. So one of the shots that's kind of cool, we don't actually show you how we did it, but Ashley, who's the runner, she's running and the camera seems to be right at her heels. And so what we did is we had the GoPro. It was great fun. It only took about 2 hours to shoot, which is crazy. But again, I've got the GoPro on here, same sort of thing. And let's unfold this leg so it actually balances. There we go. So same stabilizer, a little harder to see in black now. But what we did is we basically had the pole kind of coming out this way, and I was actually running with the stabilizer just above the ground. So if the table was the ground, it's basically I'm zipping along just about this high off the ground.
Okay.
And I'm running with it. So essentially it's 4 feet down in front of me. And so you can do kind of cool things like that. The same thing, too, is if you were, say, I figured FaceTime and you're a realtor, or just FaceTime in business, or Skype, like we're going to show you today. Yeah, the ability to use the unit as, quote, a stand, but then fly around with it actually is kind of useful because if you're collaborating with anyone and you want to show them something, your typical thing is you take the phone and you walk around with it and the image is all over the place. But if you happen to have one of these, all I have to do is put the handle on it and go for a walk. And I have actually done that. I've given virtual tours of our facility here to partners of ours. I basically say, hey, let's FaceTime or Skype. I'll take you for a walk through the place, and I do it on the stabilizer.
Right, that's cool. So before I forget, the size of the connector, I guess you guys can easily put in another converter or something in the package, and then we don't even have to worry about changing it to a bigger size, right?
Are we talking about the 1/4-20 threads on the handle?
Yeah, on the handle.
Yeah. And quite frankly, I mean, there's lots of gadgets and gadgets.
Yeah, you can buy one. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I kind of thought though it would be handy for us to actually put a 3/8 thread instead of a 1/4-20 because
Whichever is more common and standard, yeah. Because at the end of the day, is or both, yeah, or converter or whatever. But that's putting in my user's head. Wow, what would be great to have? And before I forget, I should ask about the different pricing and on the Kickstarter project. So the 100. To receive the unit the base is $125, right? 175 and then 250 and then 300. So the 300. Talk a little bit about each of them, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, starting with the 300, the X package we're calling, and I don't have the page in front of me here, but so you can ask me each, and I'll tell you what they are.
Sure.
But the X at $300, we have had a lot of questions about that, and people are wondering, why is it $50 more than the other? Well, it's $50 more because those will be the first 100 that we send out, and they're also each going to be laser etched with the Century Club. So they're basically a little bit exclusive. But other than that, there's a Rails. You can see the Rails profile in the video, and or sorry, in the images.
Yeah, the 3D profile. The Rails is kind of explain a little bit about that. It's 24-inch, and what's good for using, and
Well, here's the thing about Cinnavate. Those Rails that you see in that picture have already changed, and they've changed because in the video, for example, we used just a set of carbon rails. That
the two tubes, right?
And we've since played around with some other combinations with just various carbon tubes because they're nice and light and easy to carry around. But the extrusion, we're actually working on right now to make sure that you could actually do an inverted shot with it. So in the video, we use some rails to do an invert, and what we want to do is provide people with an extrusion in aluminum that will allow them to do an invert and a top-mounted shot, which is a bit of a trick.
Upside down and then hang the camera?
Yeah, because it's kind of nice. If you're doing an upside down, we call them table scrapers. But it's really kind of cool for effect if you want to set up a shot like on this table where I have the camera just really scraping the table. And I have to put it upside down for that. So the Rails profile that you'll see maybe today, that image will be updated, and it will allow both. It will allow you to actually mount the system inverted and top mounted. And because it's an extrusion, it's and probably the beautiful thing about Kickstarter is that we can continue to sort of add features as people bring them up. And for us, one of the obvious things is if you have two rails, you can't center mount them, right? So if you want to put a time-lapse on a tripod, which is awfully handy, you can if we just sent out two rails. So hence the extrusion, which will be machined so you can actually put it on a tripod. And so our goal right now is not only have it as functional as the one you see right now on our Kickstarter page, but the next time you look, maybe tomorrow, you might very well see the rail profile that now allows invert and top mount. So kind of the best of everything. It's like having the inverted, but without having, MacGyver up another set of rails.
Right. So the 175 version and 120 version, 25, that's the basic, right? That's the everything.
Yeah, the 125 is essentially, and I'm missing my quarter 20 mount. I think it's out on our prototype table, but it's essentially the stabilizer with three different mounts that you need. And they all just slide in and out. So there's a bit of a dovetail that's set up. I can show you maybe on this. This is a mistake up here. Which I think, So you get an idea of how the accessories, they just kind of slide out. There's a bit of a dovetail here.
Oh, okay.
So, and this happens to be a GoPro mount, so you can see how it slides in.
Right.
So by doing, it's kind of nice when you have something like that, because then you can take any type of smartphone, different widths, different heights.
Right, and then you can clamp on, and then you can adjust. Right, so there isn't a balancing issue. Like, I don't want to name the competitors, but I think some unit, it only designed for that specific camera. You can even put a different thing, different phone on it.
Yeah, that was one of the kind of, that was one of the real design points that we really wanted to get around. It's like, there's all these different combinations and all these different balances, so how do you take care of that? Well, this is quite simple, really. We've added on the inside here, and we reference it on the Kickstarter page, we've added a couple extra quarter 20 threads, and I've just got a little bit of, I've got a little adjuster here with a couple of little brass washers. Those are my, And we do have machine weights that we'll have available, but for somebody who doesn't want to spend money on machine weights, it could be as simple as a quarter 20 bolt and some washers, and it's designed to do that. So,
so we can actually put those weight, like use a washer or use a whatever as our own weight, and kind of solve the issue on balancing a Nexus phone or whatever phone.
That's right.
Then it works the same.
Not only that, but one of the kind of clever things that will come out, well, I'm not going to call it clever, I'll just call it practical, is that these adjusters are all based on quarter 20 bolts, okay? And quarter 20 bolts can be bought in 1/8 inch increments. So you can put up to about 1 3/4 inches in here, or sorry, about 1 1/4 inch, 1.5 I think is our max length. And you can actually go right out to nylon or plastic if you want to. So these caps actually they pull off. And if you wanted to just change out the bolts, so quarter 20 bolts they're socket head cap screws. You can find them everywhere. So we will have, when we send the sets out, we'll have various iterations for the common setup. So in this case, you can see I've got a GoPro Hero 3 and I've got the LCD back on. We've had some questions about that. And I am using basically our standard weights. I've just added a little bit of weight to accommodate this camera because it's a bit heavier with the LCD back. So what's kind of cool about this, and there's also, notice there's trim weights on the outside here. So I have a lot of different options on where I can add weight. These are really just designed to be trim weights, meaning if let's say that the unit is tilting this way a tiny bit and I don't want to rebalance, I just change the position of this, and it will in turn fix that. So
you balance the weight out. On that note, I have to ask this because I've got one of those point and shoot. I can't change the camera, but it works well for me. But it is about 600 grams. So that's kind of double the 300 ideal, less than 300. So is it going to work on the system?
Well, we're going to show how we balance the Black Magic, and the Black Magic is about 500 grams, if I recall correctly, without a lens. So at the end of the day, we're going to have a camera that's probably closer to 800 or 900 grams, and it's completely possible. All we basically do is add weight to this here because we can add larger machine weights if we want. And it actually, it's kind of nice. Like, this is one of the great things about this, and people would notice it immediately flying it, is that it's just really light. And you can there's no really wrist fatigue that comes into this because it's so light. This only weighs right now. And again, the handle itself is pretty much almost as heavy as the stabilizer because it's a solider piece. But it's only in the order, I think with the camera on here, we're probably talking about 300 grams. You could walk around with it all day without fatigue. So that's great. But if you're outside and it's a windy day, or even just for stabilizing, it's always easier to stabilize a heavier camera. If you put a 10-pound camera on there, there's so much mass involved that it just doesn't want to move. So when we take a heavier camera on Morpheus, it actually, the results are better. So something like this, which is, it's not with a battery in it. I have to weigh this again, but I think this is around the 350 to 400 gram mark. We're just adding a couple of small discs. They're 1/8 inch discs here to take care of that. So you'll see with the Black Magic what we do.
Those weights, are they included, or is it something standard we can just get from Home Depot and something like that and then add on it? Are you talking about extra bolts or?
Yeah, well, the reason I bring on the washer deal because we have machine weights, and the truth of machine weights is that at the moment that a machine hits them, there's some cost involved, and we know that people are going to be really cost conscious. So so adding weight to this. Could be as simple, let's say you never wanted to talk to Cinnabate again, you could technically just use a quarter 20 bolts, about 1/2 inch long, and you could just buy assorted washers if you wanted to. So experiment with different.
Okay, so but I guess your point is we can put in a heavier camera and one like not a GoPro or standard or whatever size, and then we can put bolts and whatever that we can just get from Home Depot or whoever, and then put it and play with the weight a little, and bingo, we get a steady
that's
version
kind of it goes to my roots as sort of call it a DIYer, perhaps. So, some people would find that laughable considering I'm the owner of Cinnabate, but really that's how I operate at home. I still fix my own vehicles. I weld. I like making things. So So in this case, tying people into proprietary anything wouldn't make sense to me. And there's so many combinations out there of cameras. The biggest thing for us is just making sure people are. It'll be on us to make sure that they understand how to properly balance it. Once it's balanced, it's nice. I mean, you fold it up, throw it in your bag, and it's all you're good to go. So, I mean, the GoPro itself, you can actually, if you play around with the legs a little bit, you can actually get it fairly compact.
And just throw it in a knapsack or something, and then
it will actually. One of the things we haven't shown on the Kickstarter campaign, but the package actually does include. It'll be a bit of a billfold kind of deal made of neoprene. So the parts and the bits and the mounts and everything will kind of go into one little billfold, and which won't be, it'll be about that big. So designed to take, this type of camera. Because for a lot of GoPro people, they're not going to take their camera off here. They're just going to leave it there. iPhone folks, they're never ever going to put their phone probably in there. So we wanted to kind of design something that was versatile enough to carry around the bits that you need. And the wheels kit as well, because the wheels kit can be removed as well. They pretty much just pop off. So if I want to remove or add the wheels kit, watch, I'll break it here in front of you. No, we're good. And they just pop off. Oh, okay. For them, and that is now. Off
and they're sturdy enough to pop in and pop out without breaking in the long run, I suppose.
Yeah. The materials. One of the nice things about making the product, this is all 3D printed prototype stuff. And
right, obviously, the one that you're holding, but the one that we are going to buy from the campaign, it's not, right? It's not 3D printed.
Actually, it is. This is the one that we used to shoot. And it's and one of the things, because the 3D printer material is as quote brittle as it is, generally if something survives in prototype material, the actual material that we're going, the composite that this will be made of, is got to be 10 to 20 times more stronger than this. So
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Yeah, the version that we are going to have here, it's going to be a lot stronger than
one of the tests that we tend to do, it happened by accident. We dropped things, or in one case I fell up the stairs holding the unit, and and I'm not a small guy, but what ended up breaking off was one of the feet, and considering I fell on top of it going up the stairs, I figured that was pretty good. If what we find is if the prototype, if a product like this is robust enough to survive in this type of plastic, then we have no worries about it whatsoever, because we know we're going up in magnitudes of strength. So the actual ability of this thing to take weight, so we talk about flying mode, but if we're talking about dolly mode, then the unit is capable of taking quite a bit more weight, 2 or 3 pounds, 4 or 5 pounds even, no problem.
Right.
So
all right, that's
even
cool.
now.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know about you, but I think I'm ready for the flyby. Shall we take off our at least the formal recorded interview, and then let you assemble the unit of the recorded beats, and then we'll do a flyby.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we'll hook up to this phone right here via Skype, or I guess Skype will work better. And because I have Skype loaded on the phone, and we'll take you a little fly through the upstairs here. It's basically going to be flying on this unit right here. Maybe if I find a mirror somewhere, we'll show you.
All right, sounds good.